YOU.avi. I'm better day. Hello, my relatives. Today is a good day. And it especially is good because I'm going to thank you all. All of my friends, all of my fans that called in to the National Park Service at Wind Cave and demanded that they live up to the law, which they did after a big fight. Not a real rock'em sock'em, but a verbal and legal confrontation. But suffice it to say, the Sundance went off as usual. I just want to remind you guys about the little history. Back in 1978, we started our religious ceremonies there at Wind Cave. Those include YOU.avi, which means crying for a vision. It also is naming ceremonies. We do naming ceremonies, which are very sacred to us because they have so much meaning, so much, both in this world and without. The other thing is, of course, the YOU.avi, which is the Sundance. And we do other ceremonies there, the Inipi, or the steam bath, as it's also known by. So 38 years, not 38 years, since 1978, this was our 34th year. 33 years without a complaint from the National Park Service, from anyone. Not from the tourists, not from anyone. All of a sudden, this year, we show up at the Sundance, and we're met by a tax squad. We're met by, get this, National Park Rangers in bulletproof vests, armed to the teeth, even had rifles. I don't know if they were automatic or not, but they were rifles. And shotguns. It was a tax squad. My God, about a dozen or so. But you see, that morning, I had went and dropped off. As we went there, we went in a caravan to set up the camp. All the people who helped set up the camp and put up the Sundance grounds where we have the ceremonies. And the Sundance grounds are a half a mile out of sight from the camp. Now, they went on in. They were met by the armed guards, and I didn't know that. I had went straight to the headquarters, and I dropped off our letter in response to Vidal Davilas, the superintendent, his letter to us about the permit. Suffice it to say that we told them about the American Indian Religious Freedom Act with its amendments in 1994 and 1996. Now, he had quoted that because of, get this, the, what are those little rats called? Prairie dogs. They had dug up in their digging and making diseased nests. They dig up the ground, of course, and they dig holes and what have you, prairie dog town. Well, they brought up some artifacts. And they quoted the the Archaeological Act as their basis, that we couldn't disturb the grounds because it's an archaeological site now. Well, let me tell you, the Western Hemisphere is an archaeological site. To all the grave robbers, to all the historians, to all the anthropologists, their grave robbers being archaeologists. Now, what we quoted back to them was the Preservation Act, which puts that we get, as Indian people, first choice on anything found in our lands by the government or universities or anyone. We get first choice before it's handed over to any other institution. So we reminded them of that in the Preservation Act. We reminded them that in the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act, they have to bend over backwards, and in no way are they to get impede our religious ceremonies. Of course, we have to be within, within our rights and decency. But for 33 years, when I got out there and I saw this armed confrontation by the National Park Service, I told them, I asked one guy, when were you born? He said, November 4th, 1986. 1980. 1980. I said, that was our third year here. Before you were born, we'd already put in 3 years here. And I said, and by the way, I asked the older ranger, how old are you? I said, well, I've been in the service 20 years. I said, that's not long at all. Because we started coming here before national park rangers were armed. They never used to have guns. And then back in the 90s, I think under Clinton, they started arming themselves. Then after 9/11, they got tax squads or whatever you call them. At any rate, couldn't believe it. And then they had roped off with bright yellow nylon rope and bright red snow fence, plastic snow fence. And they wanted us to park along this gravel road that's wide enough for one car and barely wide enough for a truck, any kind of truck. So we have to go down this real narrow road, into a road that they had already established in the Park Service, by the way. That road that we used to get out to the Sundance ground was always used before we got there because it was called the Apple Orchard. There's no more apples or no more orchard there, but the point is, that's when it was one of their main archaeological sites. So we said anything those prairie dogs dug up, we get first choice. That's the law. So they acquiesced. The superintendent phoned out or radioed out to the people out there that were ready to shoot us. That held up. He was on his way out. So he came out. Now that's a half-hour ride. He come out. And he said, I agree to everything. I agree to everything. But we said, wait a minute. There was only enough room for a car. We hire local, we spend a lot of money locally. We hire a local sanitation company to bring out 6 toilets that they come out and empty, all at a cost, Plus 3 real large trash barrels, which they come out and empty halfway through the ceremony. Well, that money, they didn't even have enough room for them, and then they went out down this little narrow roadway through the prairie dog town. I guess those prairie dogs that they ran over weren't archaeologists. At any rate, then they had a little tiny cooking area, barely enough room for us to take our equipment out and down and put it up, and then across a dry creek bed, over the other side, there's an open area, a meadow, if you will, and that was supposed to be where we camped. So we asked them to widen the road so the big trucks can't get in, bringing in the toilets and the trash barrels could get in and out. And they said that when we asked them to take down the snow fence, because the very first reaction is like we were going into a rural jail. You know, we're all trustees, and we were going into this jail. That's what that snow fence represented to us, bright orange. You know, the only thing missing is us to wear bright orange jumpsuits. So at any rate, they acquiesced. Now here's the thing that gets me about prairie dogs. Prairie dogs have fleas. Those fleas are known to become toxic, and they spread the plague. A number of years. You see, now remember, they rotate those rangers all the time in the national park system. A number of years ago, they had allowed so much, because they don't kill what's in their park. So they had to try to catch him. But the prairie dogs overran the Wind Cave National Park to the point where Custer State Park next door was complaining because the spillover was going on their land. And then there was the local ranchers. Well, prairie dogs were a danger to the population. They were saying we were disruptive. They were saying that we were destroying valuable land. Now wait a minute. The argument on its face is idiotic. But I said, if you're so concerned about the public, then why are you allowing prairie dogs on your land at all? The potential for plague is a day-to-day possibility. They didn't have an answer for that. But we pulled it off. We did not adhere strictly to the cooking area. We took down some fence and rearranged some fence so we had more room, and we allowed vehicles into the camping area. Now, they had, get this, taken pictures immediately after last year when there was a horrendous rainstorm and my van got stuck. And they showed pictures of all that. Well, a couple of days after all the rain passed, I sent my men back out there, and they repaired as best they could all the ruts and the thing. So we videoed this year where we camped last year. You can't tell anything. You can't tell that we even camped there, that a human being was there, even in the cooking area. So, again, the ridiculousness of them making us take one road and camping in one area and parking in one area really tore up the land. But you see, when we go in there, we say, do not follow anyone else's tracks. That's the key. Because we don't then disturb the land. We go, because the grass is very high, so you can see where people drive. Anyway, I thank you so much. It was a beautiful Sundance. YOU.avi.